Good afternoon, everybody. Kindly indicate if you can hear me. On the chat box, or just unmute yourself and let me know
Good
if you can
afternoon,
hear me.
sir. Nice to see your face again. Can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much once again. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I'm the moderator for today's session on data privacy and protection. And the topic for today's discussion is data protection officer, the DPO, compliance and enforcement, the role of a DPO, when is a DPO required, how to appoint a DPO, and penalties and fines for non-compliance. And today we are having four prestigious mentors with us, Mr. Samuel Ungu, Mr. Emmanuel Iwewe, Mrs. Abisola Oshi, and Mr. Solomon Okedara. Um, I can see Miss Abisola on the call. Good afternoon, ma, and welcome to JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program. We are
Good
so excited
afternoon.
to have you here with us. Quickly before we start the program, I'll be making a few announcements. So for those of us that are joining JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program for the first time, JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship, discussion forum, industry updates, and resource material from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and improvement in Nigeria and Africa and around the world. You can watch some of our videos, our previous videos on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms. Just search Gypsy or hashtag GypsyMIP. Some of the objectives of the program is to provide easy access to guidance, training, resource materials for students and young professionals, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders in the industry, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, and discussion and job placements for its mentees. Also, I'll be making an announcement of a still 30 minutes one-on-one mentorship session with your favorite mentor. Any mentee who is interested in taking this opportunity should send me a direct message or either of the Gypsy management team to give them the link to register. You can get live hacks, secrets, lessons, and direction from your favorite mentor. And secondly, the courses that Gypsy will be offering next quarter are entertainment, business law, data protection and privacy, fintech, blockchain, NFTs, and metaverse, and the intellectual property. Those are the five courses that will be taking next quarter. So you can kindly share a link with your friends and colleagues that are interested in either of the courses, and also share the flyer. Thank you so much as you do so. So now I'll be reading our mentor's profile for today. Okay, I'm starting with Mr. Solomon Okedara. Mr. Solomon Okedara, barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, is a practicing legal practitioner researcher with over 14 years post-call experience and outstanding expertise in human rights, with a special bias for digital rights, including data protection and privacy, digital identity, online expression, intellectual property, e-commerce, tech, and corporate transaction, and artificial intelligence, having an unusual knack for excellence and matchless client satisfaction with a view of delivering maximum results. Armed with a peerless, armed with a peerless ability in creative legal research and analysis, delivering impressive results in review of law, legal principle and standards. Solomon is a partner at Solomon Opedera and Co., a law firm of barristers and solicitors, and co-founder Digital Rights Lawyer Initiative, a non-for-profit NGO that focuses on promoting and protection of digital rights. Mr. Solomon is a strategic litigation lawyer with a robust interest and proven experience in freedom of expression and digital rights litigation. He has litigated on digital rights and freedom of expression subject in courts across Nigeria to the Supreme Court, and he has conducted cases at the ECOWAS courts, among others. Solomon was in 2020 recognized as one of the top 50 individuals leading in legal innovation in Africa at the African Legal Innovation Award. Solomon currently serves as a legal researcher with Columbia University in the city of New York for the Ivy League School to Global Freedom of Expression Project, where he analyzes judgments bordering on freedom of expression subjects covering over 120 jurisdictions across the world, including United States, Europe, India, and Africa, among others. He is a 2016 Research Fellow, recipient of International Center for Not-for-Profit Law, ICNL, Washington, D.C. He was specially recognized in 2017 Hero of Human Rights by Access Now. Mr. Solomon was specially recognized as a finalist at the 2018 Global Freedom of Expression Prize of Columbia University. We'll be so happy to have Mr. Solomon on the call with us today. Thank you so much for all you do and for always being here to mentor us on data protection subjects. Our
Good
second
evening, everyone.
mentor for
Thank you for
today
having me.
is Mr. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Samuel Ungu is a vibrant, result-driven Nigerian technology lawyer with specialization in data protection, intellectual property, financial technology, and corporate commercial. In a bid to deepen his knowledge in technology law, Samuel undertook trainings and courses in data protection, intellectual property, and financial technology. Some of the courses and certification he has acquired are Certified Information Privacy Professional, Europe rights to privacy in the digital age in Africa from Center for Human Rights, University of Pretoria, Privacy Law and Data Protection from University of Pennsylvania, Data Privacy Fundamentals from Northern University, Introduction to General Data Protection Regulation from University of Groningen, FinTech Foundation and Overview from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Introduction to Digital Currencies from University of Nicosia, Introduction to Blockchain Evolution and Technology Concept from AICPA, Intellectual Property from University of Pennsylvania, Introduction to Copyright from University of Pennsylvania, and others. Mr. Samuel has been a regular invitee to speak on data protection topics by different organizations. First, he has spoken at ASQ Training Limited on the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation implication for the Nigerian capital markets at Nigerian Internet Governance Forum on data sharing and data sovereignty in digital economy. At IP Catch-up on the digital economy, data protection and privacy at New Week's coaching series on exploring diverse career opportunities within the legal sector, data protection and privacy at ADR discourse on an emerging discussion for stakeholders in the technology sector. Mr. Samuel is a co-founder of Association of Privacy Lawyers in Africa and Privacy Hub Africa. He is a member of stakeholders in Blockchain Association of Nigeria, Smart Contracts Research Forum, Young Lawyers Mentorship Club, and Nigerian Bar Association. He is currently an associate at Alliance Law Firm. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Samuel Ungu. Our next mentor is Mr. Emmanuel Iwewe. He's an information technology law specialist with years of experience advising clients on a wide range of legal issues related to technology, including IT contracts, data privacy, cryptocurrency, intellectual property, and e-commerce, skilled in drafting and negotiating contracts, providing risk assessment and resolving disputes. And finally, our last mentor for today is Mrs. Is Mrs. Abisola Oshin. Can you all hear me, please?
We can hear you.
I thank you very
We
much.
can, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Let me just quickly read the last mentor's profile for today. Mrs. Abisola is a seasoned corporate and technology lawyer with over 14 years of experience in legal and corporate practice. She has gained extensive expertise in corporate governance, privacy, regulatory compliance, capital markets, OEM engagements, managed service, software service, intellectual property, and fintech. She is a visionary leader who has been instrumental in supporting transformational change for data protection at CWGPLC. As the group head of legal, she has played a pivotal role in the implementation and enforcement of data protection regulations and policies across the group. While leveraging technology and innovation, Abisola has also provided critical legal advice and guidance to management and the board of directors on matters relating to data security. Ms. Abisola, before joining CWG PLC, she serves as the primary legal officer at EAN Aviation, a ground handling and fixed base operator in the aviation industry. Ms. Abisola also worked with Team SOAS Co, a leading commercial law firm in Nigeria, where she provided legal advisory service to both local and international companies. Abisola is a graduate of the University of Lagos, the Gwendio University, and the Nigerian Law School, where she obtained her bachelor degree, LLM, and BL, respectively. She also holds an LLM in international trade and commercial law from Durham University. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Abisola Oshin. I'll be giving the floor to Ms. Abisola to be the first mentor to give us a talk on the topic for today: data protection officer, compliance enforcement code, how to appoint a DPO, and penalties. I don't know if we still have Ms. Abisola on the call with us.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly note
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yes,
just wanted to
we can
confirm.
hear you, ma. Okay,
Good
that
afternoon.
you have 15
Okay.
minutes.
I have how many minutes?
Make your presentation. 15 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. That's very fine. Thank you very much. So I'll just present now my slides. Just very briefly walk through, being a DPO, and I think it'll be very interesting to speak about this because in my organization I am a DPO, so I think I'm coming from a more practical aspect of this part of the series. So 1 second, please. Just trying to get my slides on. Just present. Okay. All right, just to confirm everyone can see my screen. Just confirm everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen, ma.
Yes, ma.
All right.
Thank you. Ooh,
Thank you
nice.
very much. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. And before I, comment, I just wanted to look at this slide. It's supposed to be a DPO, but the guy is holding, he has a lot of things in his hands. He has a suitcase, he has a note, where he's sticking things. He has something that shows maybe maybe a cloud. He's just trying to wiggle his way, would I say, around, just trying to ensure that the organization is protected. So I know that this is the fourth series regarding this, so I'm not going to delve in what data protection is, or because I believe we already have a good knowledge of that. Can everybody confirm that for me?
Yes, ma.
Yes, ma.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just go right into it. I mean, who is a data protection officer? What is really this officer? I know we've been hearing about data protection, and where do you come in as a lawyer? I want to believe everybody on this call is a lawyer. Well, I don't know even if they are not, for them to be here, so I'm sure that they are. So
Yes, there are some lawyers here, ma.
Some lawyers, okay, that's fine. I mean, I always feel that it's always, easier, when it's lawyers, just because of what you have to, learn. But it's not as if it's a hard and fast rule that once you're a lawyer, you must be a data protection officer. I have a friend who is, she studied economics, and she's a DPO in her office. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but just so that, she understands what it is. She's gone through a series of, coaching regarding that. Okay, so I mean, we talk about data protection being, 1 second. Data protection being defined as the legal protection of a person, which is usually a data subject in regards to the processing of data concerning himself or herself by another person or institution called the data controller. Data protection can also be defined as a set of rules that aim to protect the rights and freedoms and interests of individuals whose personal data are collected, stored, processed, and disseminated. So, of course, I'm sure you know about the data controller, the processor, the subject. So I'm not going to go, into all those. I'm just going to go right into it. Now, I mean, you already know about data protection, and I mean, there is really no way for you to discuss about data protection and not talk about the GDPR. But I try to make my presentation a bit more practical in terms of Nigerian law, and so I was able to get the major laws that data protection stems from. Obviously, the right to privacy, you have it in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and you have the GDPR. You have the Supplementary Act on the Personal Data Protection within ECOWAS. I mean, those are the international instruments that we have. And of course, you have the different laws. Of course, I mentioned the data protection regulation, the implementation framework, just different things. For example, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm mentioning all these laws. A lot of these acts, they just have something to do with, for example, the HIV Anti-Discrimination Act. There's some things that have to do with, protecting people's data. I'll tell you of a story of somehow what someone told me. She said that they were taking hepatitis B vaccinations in their office, and for some strange reason, the people that were doing the jabs, this was the second shot. They put the list of all the people that they had registered. So they had the positive and the negative, and people were able to see that someone was positive. Of course, that's really even against the HIV Anti-Discrimination Act, which stemmed really, really, or which came really, really from the data protection principles. So, I mean, one just needs to be very, very careful. And then, of course, we have the subsidiary legislation. So, who is a data protection officer? let me just ask you, I mean, you've been hearing about DPOs, and of course, I'm sure you're very familiar with the fact that there's the new Data Protection Act coming out, or would I say bill? We're hoping that it will be signed before the end of the tenure of our current president. But I mean, fingers are still crossed. And you know, who is he or who is she? You know, what does the person do? Now, under the EU's data protection regulation, data protection officers, you know, they serve to protect the rights of the data subjects, you know, and they serve as a liaison between the jurisdictional data protection authorities rather, and data subjects in the organization. So that's just a simple, you know, I just wanted to make it, you know, just a general definition. But, you know, even in our NDPR, it says every data controller will designate a data protection officer for the purpose of ensuring adherence to relevant data privacy instruments and data protection directives of the data controller. So basically, you know, the data protection officer is the person that ensures adherence with the data protection, of the data controller with the data protection authority. That's one of the things that the data controller does, protection officer does. I'll just say the DPO, so I won't start mixing it up because I'm saying data. So who is a data protection officer? I mean, to perfectly understand the role of a data protection officer, we need to look at, you know, the issue of enforcement. So, for example, the NDPR, you know, creates a compliance and enforcement mechanism, which aids in it, does regulatory functions regarding data protection, and of course, there are the data protection compliance organization, the data protection officer, the police, the Attorney General Federation, and Administration Redress Panel, the ARP. So, like I said, you know, I'm really focusing more on Nigerian law, just so that, you know, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it, but of course, for practicality purposes, if you're going to be working in a company, Nigerian company, you know, you need to know, you know, the basics of this, and, you know, before you even start talking about things like international data transfer, what happens, you know, what are you going to do, and, you know, things like that. So now I'll just, you know, go right into it. What role does this data protection officer play? I said, okay, they ensure adherence, but I would say that they play a very huge role in the compliance and enforcement of data protection laws. For example, the GDPR Article 39, you know, states that they advise the organization on obligations, they monitor compliance, which I've already mentioned, they conduct data impact assessments, data protection impact assessments, and, you know, they directly report to the most senior person in the organization. They have adequate resources to carry out their duties, and they are free from any conflict of interest. Interestingly, I was reading a case today about the DPO having a conflict of interest, but I think I'll send that to you later. I'm trying to remember the name of the case, but I'll send it to you later. Now, they are independent privacy, you know, and data protection professionals. Like I said, still the same thing. When you think of data protection officer, you're thinking of compliance, you're thinking of protection, you know, of data. You know, I mean, you cannot be a data protection officer if you're not protecting something, and you cannot be a data protection officer if you're not trying to adhere with the law. And a data protection officer is the champion of data protection in the organization. You know, they are the champions of data protection in an organization. No other person. I mean, you can have a data protection compliance organization, but you cannot, I mean, they're not always, you know, they probably will not always be with you, you know, obviously they won't always be with you, but the data protection officer is the one that knows what is happening. What's the finance department doing? Or how are they processing data? How is HR doing? How are they processing data? I hope, you know, they are not, they're processing our data in the right way. I hope they are not flouting or going against the provisions of the NDPR. You know, these are, and, you know, another thing is that they notify they make notifications about data breaches. So if there's a data breach in an organization, it is the job of the data protection officer to report, to the authorities and say, oh, there was a data breach, and even to report to the people that their data was breached, that, oh, we had a breach of data. Of course, they're also the ones that, they're accountable for recording data processing activities in the organization. And I think it's just the same thing. In summary, they inform and advise the company and employees on their obligations, they monitor compliance. Oh, yes, and they advise on data protection impact assessments, and they monitor performance, they manage risks, and they cooperate with the supervisory authority. In this case, the NIDA and the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau, they also act as the point of contact of supervisory authorities. So if I remember that sometime last year when the NDPB came to start operating, they asked us to send the names of three people, acting as DPOs in our organization. And just so that, if there's anything that there was any report or any breach or anything or whatever it was, they would have, that information. So that was one of the things that they did. I hope everybody's getting what I'm saying. Can I just get a confirmation from everybody?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Amazing.
And if there's anything you don't understand, I can always, go back to. And of course, you have as the data protection officer, you have the sole duty to exercise professional secrecy because of the nature of you are protecting, like I said, you are a data protection officer. Your core job is to protect data. So it also involves some kind of secrecy. You might be privy to some kinds of information and different things. You just cannot actually, divulge information anyhow, just because maybe you are, maybe recording processing activities or you have, some kind of information. And of course, you should not have a conflict of interest. And this is a very, very important part of your job as a data protection officer, because just imagine you're working in a company, you're a data protection officer, and okay, everything looks good, you're doing well, and there's a data breach. You could just be having that conflict. This thing is not really necessary. Please, I don't want any issues. I don't want my boss to start saying different things that I'm just putting the company out there. But you know what the law has said. The law has said that this is what you should do when there's a data breach. And it will be worse for you as a data protection officer if it is now discovered that there was a data breach and the supervisory authority, which is NDPB, realizes and they come and penalize you. And it looks like you did not do your job as the data protection officer. So my next slide. So when is the data protection officer required? According to the law, every company should have the data protection officer, but generally, general knows, I'm using the GDPR. Of course, any organization that processes information, it is required by regulation. You are processing a lot of people's data, especially when you're a company, you're processing a lot of people's data. When they get into your company, they're telling you they are male, they are female. They're telling you their salary. They're telling you that, they're giving you some important information. They're processing their data. If you have any data on a large scale, you have to have a data protection officer. But someone will argue and say, okay, what if it's not on a large scale? The NDPR says that, look, if you're processing data of 2,000 people or about 2,000 people, you need to have a yearly audit. And when you have that yearly audit, who do you need? You need the DPO, your internal DPO and the data protection compliance organization, to do that. So I mentioned some things, I talked about the annual audit. So if you're going to become a DPO, what exactly do you need to do? How do you appoint a DPO? So it's a very funny topic because we found ourselves in a very, very funny situation, in Nigeria. A lot of people, are just awakening themselves to the potentials of DPOs. And first of all, of course, if you don't know something, you can't be appointed as a data protection officer. So you must have professional expertise in Nigeria data protection laws. Number one, you must, if you are a data protection officer in Nigeria, you can't tell me that you don't know that there's a Data Protection Act, coming up, or bill that is before the House. You can't tell me that you don't know about the NDPR. You can't tell me that you don't know about the NDPR framework. You can't tell me that you don't know about the GDPR, which is like core legislation for, international legislation for, all these things, and of course, there are courses that you can take. I know that there are a lot of online courses, but obviously the primary and I would say the most recognized is the CIPP, Certified Information Privacy Professional by the by IAPP, yes, International Association of Privacy Professionals. So that's a good start. Of course, you can do online courses on data protection, just to help you, and anytime you find people, and I think even on Coursera there are data protection courses, but in Nigeria you need to have. I don't know if anybody's. I think there are people that are working towards us having, a body, for data protection in Nigeria. But for now, I just know you just should have the expertise. You should have an in-depth understanding in data protection laws. If you're a data protection officer, you cannot say you don't know what's, the principles, the core principles of data protection are. Of course, you must be able to inform and advise the organization and management and employees and third-party processors of their obligations under GDPR or under the NDPR. So, for example, in my own office, on a quarterly basis, when we're having a business review meeting or we're having a town hall meeting, I just come out and just try to remind people that, okay, your data is very important. You can't just, you should keep your data, your personal data. Of course, we also monitor compliance. Like I said, there's always an audit if your company is processing, data yearly. So you should ensure that, you submit your data. Am I out of time? Excuse me, am I out of time? Hello? Hi, Hussein, am I out of time?
Yes, you're out of time. You can just round up.
Okay,
we just have 2 mentors on the call. We expect.
Okay, I apologize for taking time.
We have
okay, yeah. So basically, I think I'm pretty much done. And I put in the penalties. If as a data protection officer, you're not able to understand the things that you're supposed to do as a data protection officer. Of course, you're flouting the rules. Your company, it doesn't make your company look good, and it doesn't make you look good also. So you'll be fined. I've listed the penalties here. But lastly, I just wanted to say that there's an increase in even the way your company's image is projected. Most people, if you're working at a bank or something, and your company works at a bank, they want to see that you're actually adhering to data protection, principles. And that is the note where I'll, end my presentation. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you. So I think we're done for now.
Wow, splendid job, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abisola, for that wonderful presentation. We really enjoyed your slides. They were detailed and rich, and also your presentation. We'll be giving the floor to Mr. Solomon to also give us his presentation on the topic, and welcome Mr. Emmanuel to the call. Mr. Solomon, sir.
Okay, so can we hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so once again, good evening, everyone. And so I think I want to say once again, let's give a round of applause for the previous speaker. She did an excellent job. And for me, maybe just to borrow the words of the learned Justice of the Supreme Court, when he said, I've read the draft of the judgment of my learned brother, and I have nothing more useful to add. So, I mean, that's just actually to say how expansive our coverage of the subject matter, was. It was an excellent presentation. But that said, for me at the time, a moderator, is Mr. Emmanuel on the call?
Mr. Emmanuel is on the call now.
Mr. Emmanuel, are you still on the call? Okay. So so let me start with you, a moderator. I think you are quite African in your introduction. Now, each time you read my profile, I keep hearing Mr. Solomon, Mr. Solomon. Solomon is Solomon. Chief. I think I found myself in your shoe 2017. I had the reason to be a research fellow on the invitation of the White House in Washington, D.C. And my supervisor I had to be dealing with, each time I had to talk to him, I had to be using Mr. And I realized that it was awkward. I mean, some other person had to be calling him Zach. That was his name. And the same thing happened to me at the American University. My professor had to be Professor, Prof, and every other person were calling him by his first name. Unless, yes, I know we are very African, and sometimes we are in that fix. But for the purpose of resume, profile, CV, Chief, feel free to call Solomon. It flows that way. For me, it's awkward having to put Mr. before my name every time, please. Thank you. And if Mr. Emmanuel is still on the call, there is a reason why I asked for him. Now, after this presentation, trust me, I don't think either myself or Mr. Emmanuel should make any presentation. I'll tell you why. In fact, for me, my presentation this afternoon or this evening is one of protest. The two times I've actually made comments on presentation slides by the mentees, I made a significant observation. Can you remember that, please? Can you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Court cases.
Cases, excellent. I actually received only one presentation. Do we have more than one?
Yes, we have two presentations, sir.
Two, but I got only one.
Oh.
Whether that was an error or it was, or I didn't check well in my email, but I got only one. And in the one I got, I couldn't actually see a case. And I keep saying, look, there are, at least there's even one Nigerian case. There is one Nigerian case that talks about appointment of DPO. There's one at least. There is one. And I'm sure you can find nothing less than 2 or 3 in Europe. So I'm not sure, because you see, look, like our previous speaker has, people on this call, to the best of my understanding, they are lawyers or students of law. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there are people who are trained or who have capacity to apply principles of law to life situations. And like we all know, application of knowledge is actually, in fact, for me, I always say something that application of knowledge is the justification for its acquisition. We acquire knowledge to apply them. So please, when you told me that there are 2 presentations, so we have 2 slides, do we have cases in any one of them? If you have gone through them, please. Can you confirm that to me?
No, sir.
Sorry? Did you say no or yes?
No. There's no case, sir.
Okay. Well, okay. So, sincerely speaking, I'm actually hungry. I'm hungry. Unless you can confirm to me that those groups have not been part of these classes. Have they been part of, they have not been part of these classes?
They have been part, sir.
I'm hungry. Somebody said we should be African. Okay, so I actually had this issue too when we had an event, and so I was a co-moderator with someone from Kenya, Linda, and I knew that Linda was used to call people by their first name. And we had senior advocates of Nigeria. We have PhD holders on the. I had to reach out to her. I said, Linda, please, these are Nigerians. They value title. Please, do not call someone Dapo. Dr. Dapo, please don't make that mistake. So even at that, at some point, she had to, she forgot all of that and she had to call them by their first name and all of that. And some, I had to write them that, please, how do you want to be addressed? Some of them still had to say, Mr. Barrister. Thank God. What is all of this? The president today, we call him Muhammadu Buhari. I don't know why we have to, but that's okay, that's fine. That's the response to God's love. Okay, so I said I'm angry, honestly. And I don't know whether anybody would think my anger is not justified.
It's justified.
Do you have a response to that?
It's justified, sir, because I believe you've made that notation on two presentations.
On two occasions. And those cases that are there, if you just, I'm not just for it, at least if I don't know of anyone, I know of one litigated by DRL. Like I've told you guys, to the best of my knowledge and with all sense of modesty, if you have come across 10 cases on data protection in Nigeria, maybe 6 of them litigated by DRLI and maybe 2 or 3 others litigated by DRLI. So I don't know, because I know of one now that it was actually centered around that. And none of the groups here cited that particular case. I mean, that's not encouraging. So because to me, it actually shows we are here to do, talk shop and we go back home and all of that. Please. I'm not. Somebody said we promised by the next class we would have cases. Okay, so that's good. Well, like I said, our previous presenter, speaker, did a fantastic job. So if there's anything I'm going to do, I'll just try to let us know that, look, NDPR makes provision for appointment of DP and therefore DPO in its regulation 412. And that's actually the basis of which DRLI went to court to challenge non-appointment of a DPO, not by a private data controller, but by a public data controller. I've said this over and over again, and trust me, that government is the biggest violator of rights all over the world, not just in Nigeria, including the United States, government. So, because the moment we have Data Protection Act 2023, all of us will start looking for private violators, parallel private data controllers. Well, the good thing is that you can trust that DRLI will hold the government by their throats. I can assure you of that. I mean, we still have cases against the government at the Supreme Court. I will not relent. So we need, because for us, we believe that the government is the gatekeeper of our privacy and personal data. So if the government fails or shirks in its responsibility, it lacks the duty, both moral duty and statutory duty, to want to enforce the law against private data controllers. So like I said, NDPR in this regulation 412 provides for appointment of data controller. And pretty much as we have actually seen, for appointment of a DPO, data protection officer. And the role of the data protection officer is that role of the pathfinder in any data, within a data controller, in any organization. Is the one who, by his training and expertise, knows how data are meant to be securely stored, categorized, transferred, and how responses to demand or request for data held by a controller is to be done. Compliance with the law. So, and if there is anything I'm going to talk about, I think it's more of what does the appointment of a data protection officer does to your organization as a data controller. Number one, it shows transparency. Now, number two, it shows how much you value your data subjects, who are either your clients or your customers. Let me create a very relatable example. when I go onto your website or portal, like let's say it's an e-commerce portal website, and while reading through your privacy notice and some other things, I realized that someone with the name Hussein is named as data protection officer with an email through which I can reach him. I understand that, look, here is a serious data controller who values me, who values my privacy, who values my personal data, who values my rights. So he projects that to every data subject. When they come across that there is not only appointed a data protection officer, but such appointment is made open. There's a disclosure to that effect. And not just a disclosure by name, a disclosure of a channel of communication, how you can reach him. In fact, sometimes go as much as a statement as to time within which he would respond to you when you send a communication or a complaint. So those are actually basic fundamentals or basic importances or value or essence of appointing a data protection officer, aside compliance with the extant regulation or legislation. Now, we know that when we are talking about appointment of data protection officer, we know that one is a matter of the law. So whether it is right or wrong, as long as the law says, do this, you have to do it. If the law says, leave, go and relocate to the ocean or to lagoon and live there, it is the law. The only thing that can stop that law is for you to challenge that law in court. As long as it's the law, it is the law. So today, the extant regulation is the IDPR, and this regulation 412 provides for appointment of a data protection officer by every data controller, both private and public. So for me, like I said, now adding this up as reasons why we need a data protection officer for every data controller to the tips given in the earlier presentation, I think I will want to stop here and restart other comments. And I don't want to call it tongue lashing. I won't do that, don't worry. But then to my review, my very blunt reviews to the presentations when the groups made their presentation. But to say again and reiterate my position, I am not happy, I am hungry, and I think it comes across to me like we are not taking ourselves serious and we're not taking the mentors serious. We can do better, please. Thank you.
I think Mr. Solomon's network went off. So you are muted.
No, he was done, sir. He was done with his presentation.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. I think we can see Mr. Emmanuel on the call. Okay, he left the call.
Yes, he complained that his network is bad.
Okay. On behalf of the mentees also, I apologize to Mr. Solomon. And I will also make sure that I keep reminding them about including case studies on their PowerPoint slides. Okay, I'll be giving the floor to our presenter for Group 1 to start this our presentation now. And kindly note that you have 10 minutes to make your presentation and also share your screen. Presenter for Group 1 and presenter for Group 2 should be ready to present after the presenter for Group 1. Do we have our presenter on the call?
All right, good evening. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm the presenter for Group 1, so let me share my screen.
You can start your presentation while you are trying to share your screen. Hello, presenter one. Are you still on the call? I think she left the call. So the second presenter can start presentation now. And maybe the first presenter will present afterwards. Is our presenter for group 2 on the call? Presenter for group 2 is Miracle. Miracle is not on the call, and the group leader is Nonye. Nonyelu is also not on the call. Please, any group 2 member can step in for the presenter for group 2 while we are waiting for the presenter for group 1 to start the presentation. Okay, someone can also step in for presenter for group 1. God's love, can you help us, please? Can you hear me? Hello, can you all hear me, please?
Well, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you also, so I don't know.
I can see our mentees on the call. God's love is on transit, so he won't be able to step in for his group. Miracle Duru, or Maureen Duru, Enara Odiga, and Emily. We still also have Blessing Oguntuase. You guys should speak up, please. Enara Odiga is in group 2. Enara, can you make the presentation on behalf of your group? Blessing is in group 1. Please kindly indicate, every mentee on the call, please kindly indicate on the chat box if you are still with us on the call. I can see only God's love reply. Okay, pending when our mentees will start their presentation. We also don't have. We also okay. We call on those that have live questions from our mentors talk so far, and also on the topic to ask. I awaited questions from our mentees before the session, and I didn't get any question. So that was the reason why we didn't send question to our mentors. Can you all hear me, please?
I think I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you.
So where are we?
Awaiting our mentees presentation, but we can still take more time to listen to a presentation from Mr. Solomon while I'm trying to get our mentees on the call. And Mr. Emmanuel left the call, so we only have 2 mentors on the call.
Can I say something?
Yes.
To say, okay, for everyone on this call, I mean, when I first of all got into the call, to be honest, I've seen, okay, he said we shouldn't be calling him Mr. So I've actually seen Solomon. I didn't, interestingly, I didn't know he was going to be on this call. The first time I met him was at the privacy conference call, and he was moderating a session. Am I right? I think you moderated the session on international visa transfer.
Yes.
Yeah, so I met you the other day, and I thought to myself, this guy knows a lot of things, and so it was just interesting. So I feel very humble, to be on the same, mentorship, program with him. And this is why, I'm not particularly, pleased. This is someone who is very busy. I mean, you can imagine, someone being a panel or something. He was moderating the panel, so he was pretty much the guy that was, dictating all these things. If someone like this says, you know what, I want to mentor this people, I want to see them, and we're just here as if nobody, I don't think it's a good impression. I don't think it's a good sign. I was wondering why he was angry, but nobody's talking, nobody's saying anything, and for me, it's not particularly encouraging. It's not, it feels like, you're just doing it for doing it. You just want to get maybe something like a certificate, and let them just, even in the presentations, when I saw them, I was, first of all, I think the first one I saw, I think that was maybe group 1 or something like, no, not group 1. I think group 1's one was better. There's another one, the background was green. I was like, okay, why would you, I mean, you put a lot in, so nobody could have come up, with a better, slide presentation. And, Solomon was very, very correct. I feel bad saying Solomon though. It's so heavy in my mouth.
It sounds somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not my, but it's okay.
But it's fine.
He's a John.
Please,
He's a
let's
John.
see
And I'm
our
going to,
Mr. Solomon.
yeah, so I'm even happy that we're on this
Please.
mentorship session together. I'm going to get your number after, so I will link with
I'll
you
be gladly obliged.
on LinkedIn. But what I wanted to say was that if somebody, takes their time, just encourage the person. I mean, the funny thing, Mr. Solomon, sorry, and I were already DPO. Oh, well, he's not a DPO, but I'm a DPO. Mr. Solomon, does not need all this. You are the people that, need all this. So I expect a little bit of, drive and all. It's not really just about going. The problem we have with this generation is that people just say, oh, I have this certificate, I've done this, I've done that. It is very bad for you to be a champion on social media. And in real life, you cannot see anything. It's really bad. So please, let us take this very, very, very seriously. It's not like you're just doing something. It's not like you're doing one coursework in university. It is something that is very important. The NDPB bill, then the data protection bill will be, passed into an act very soon. And you're going to see a flood of enforcement of data protection officers in every organization. And it's people like you that will say that you attend mentorship, this thing, and part of the things that, and here we are, you cannot mention, you cannot say anything. So please, I would like somebody, God's love come. I'm going to start calling people's names. What question do you have for Solomon? Because I refuse to be in a session where nobody's saying anything. It's not encouraging, please. So God's love camp. What have you learned today?
Do you still have God's love on the call? But you are muted.
Sorry, I think I was muted. Miracle Chisimde. They are not presenting. There's
Gospel said
Enara.
in transit.
Sorry?
Gospel
She's in
said
transit.
in transit, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Miracle, what about you? What questions do you have? Is Miracle there? Hi, Miracle. Fantastic. Let's hear from you. So what have you learned today? Are you in the group that did the green presentation?
Yes, but
Please,
I was
Miracle.
talking and I didn't know that the call ended on me. Like I was talking all the while.
So do you want to present now?
Yes.
Okay, it will be very, very helpful if you present. But please, I want to say that if you're going to be presenting something, please don't be using green background for your PowerPoint. That font is not good also. We're here to help you. Look at, I saw the other team's presentation, the background was white. Here it was a bit, it still needs to be some fine tuning, but let the reader see your presentation and be happy to even want to know about it. It's really important. Please, can you walk us through or ask your questions, depending on what Hassan wants. Thank you.
Yeah, we are going to take her presentation before the question and answer session. So you can start now.
Okay, let me share my screen again. I hope it doesn't go off. Okay.
We can see your screen.
So I'll be presenting for group 1 and our topic is who is a DPO, compliance and enforcement, rules of a DPO, and when a DPO is required. Now, firstly, who is a DPO? Under the data privacy and protection is an acronym that stands for data protection officer, and a DPO is a data privacy protection officer who is in charge or takes the duty or responsibility of ensuring that an entity or a company or an organization where he's appointed as a DPO is in compliance with all the necessary data protection rules and regulations. That's a DPO has a duty or takes charge of ensuring that the organization where he's appointed as a DPO is in compliance with all the data privacy and protection rules. Now, it's the duty of a DPO to ensure that a company is in compliance with all the rules of the GDPR, and he is also to ensure that he's acquainted with the knowledge and he's updated with relevant laws and rules of data privacy. This is to make sure that the company does not err in any of the provisions of the GDPR. Now, compliance for the appointment of a DPO. Article 412 of the NDPR provides that all data controllers are to comply with the provision of this article. Now, what does this article say? The article provides that every data controller is expected to appoint a DPO within 6 months of commencing their business. That means that if a company gets registered and begins to carry out activities, not just any activities, if the core activities of that company or that organization has to do with collection of sensitive data or processing of sensitive data of their data subjects, then there will be need to appoint a DPO. Now, the law provides that they are expected to appoint a DPO who will also check if they are in compliance with all the data privacy rules provided when or where a DPO is required. Where a DPO is required. In my research, I saw 3 instances or 3 situations where a DPO is required. Firstly, is when it is in a public authority or a public body. That's when the organization or the company is a public body, then there will be a need to appoint a DPO. Now, the exception to this rule is when such an organization or that company or that body is acting by the order of the court, or where the core activities of that organization, that's the basic activities that that organization carry out, does not have to do with processing or operating on the personal data of data subjects on a large scale, then there will be no need to appoint a DPO. Now, another situation where when a DPO can be appointed is if the basic or core activities of the company has to do with processing of the individual sensitive data on a large scale. On a large scale, there will be need to appoint a DPO. Now, thirdly, where the basic activities of that company includes carrying out operations that require monitoring of data subjects on a large scale, then there will be need to appoint a DPO. Now, over to the roles of a DPO. Roles of a DPO. Can't find that here. Over to the roles of a DPO. I'll start by saying that primarily the role of a DPO is to ensure that the organization where he or she is appointed as a DPO processes the personal details of their data subjects and ensure that it's in compliance with the rules of the data privacy. Now, a DPO, monitors internal affairs within the company that appointed him. He monitors these internal affairs to make sure that they're in compliance with the GDPR, just as I said earlier. A DPO also plays an advisory role. He advises the data controller and every other employee the within the organization or the company, educates them on their rights, the obligation, the responsibility the data controller owes to the data subject, and educates the data subject on his or her rights. The DPO also creates awareness and enlightens everybody within that company. He handles queries, complaints, and requests from data subjects. The DPO creates or establishes data protection policies for his or her organizations. Now, other important features of a DPO. The DPO is an integral part of the organization, making her ideally placed to ensure compliance. Nevertheless, the DPO should be able to perform her duties independently in the EU institution and bodies. There are a number of assurances guaranteeing his independence. The applicable rules for European institutions and bodies expressly provide that the DPO shall not receive any instruction regarding the performance of her duties. There must not be conflicts of interest between the duties of the individual as a DPO and her duties. That's the personal interest of a DPO should not be in conflict with his duties in the organization, as in his duties as a DPO in the organization that appointed him. To avoid conflict, it is recommended that a DPO should not also be a controller of processing activities. For example, if he's head of resources, the DPO should not be an employee on a short or fixed term contract. A DPO should not report to a direct superior rather than top management. A DPO shall have responsibility for managing her own budget. In conclusion, the role of a DPO is crucial in fostering a culture of data protection and ensuring that the organizations handle personal data in a lawful and ethical manner. Group 1 members: Blessing Temitope Ogunnase, Godslove Kamelane, Rahima Olabimpo, Maureen Duru, Esaka Chiemele Ke. Oh, my name is not here. Mode Miracle Chisimdere. All right, that's all for Group 1 presentation. Thank you.
Stepping up on behalf of your group and making the presentation on behalf of your group. Do we have the Group 2 members on the call now? Group 2 members. Okay. While we are waiting for the Group 2 members, we have some questions on the chat box from one of our mentees, Godslove. I have 2 questions for the mentors. The first question is, what are the challenges faced by data protection officers in implementing and maintaining data protection policies within the organization? Ms. Abisola.
Oh, okay. So I think I'll just take that. I mean, what are the challenges faced by data protection officers in implementing and maintaining data protection policies in the organization? I think for me, what I would say, apart from the issue of conflict of interest, whereby you are employed by this company, number two, and you are supposed to uphold the law. So those are issues. There's a case, and I'm going to type on the comments box, and maybe you guys can look at it. It's a foreign case, but then it will also be very interesting to get the cases from from Solomon. But what I would just say is that they are faced with the challenge of compliance, of conflict of interest. They also face with the challenge of the fact that they don't get enough support. And I'm saying this from my own experience. They don't get enough support. A typical Nigerian company, they don't really care. They just want to tick the regulatory box and say, you know what, I don't care, I've done this. Whatever you need to do, just do it and just get it done. I don't really care whether it's done or not. That's how it is. So one of the challenges I would also say is cooperation from management employees who drive data protection. And even in most people, how will I put it now? Most people in Nigeria, if you tell people that they just brought in a new law, everybody will say, it's okay, there's no problem. The law is, it's good that you made this law. If you tell people that they're going to fine you if you don't obey this law, you see how people are going to be running helter-skelter just so that they're not penalized. And even for your own company's reputation, you want your company to look good. But I'll tell you that when they first of all started with the NDPR, people were not taking it seriously. They were saying that, okay, and when it now came out and said, look, if you don't file within this particular period, you are going to get fined. People now started taking it up. And for some people, it's not even about the fine, just for their regulatory, for their own view as a company, for their image as a company. So I would say, for me, in practice as a DPO, challenges are cooperation, adherence to regulations, and I will also say another thing, overlapping regulation. I would say that because in my own company, we have some ISO certifications that require some things. And, everything fused together is wonderful, but sometimes some of these overlapping requirements or certifications that companies are required to have, they tend to have something that maybe, for example, maybe an ISMS, information management system, says that, you know what, you should have a data protection policy. But that data protection policy is not really capturing what the NDPR is talking about. Then you have to now start creating. So that's another multiple issue, multiple law issue that you will have, and you don't have to start creating. You probably see that you have to have one that goes with the law, one that goes with ISMS and things like that. So those are the three things I believe that there are the issues with faced by the protection officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abisola. Calling on our mentor Solomon to give his own contribution on that question.
Very much. I think she essentially covered most of the issues in that question, but I want to emphasize something. Now, she briefly mentioned the issue of corporate reputation, which is a big issue, just like she mentioned. Now, one of the things I figured out something someday. So one of the banks I bank with is Guaranty Trust Bank, and someday I went to their website, and I realized that their privacy policy was crafted compliant to both NDPR and GDPR. Now, I mean, that was amazing. I mean, I saw that about maybe just 6 months after NDPR was issued. Now, for me, when you look at that, particularly as to the issue of having a DPO, when you take your organization to the level or standard of GDPR, it means you are holding yourself, accountable to the highest level or highest standard possible. And that actually suggested something to me as a data subject, that look, this data controller takes me serious. This data controller, having held itself to the highest level or highest standard obtainable ever, means they mean business. So for me, it's a critical thing. And because just like we all know, reputation is everything in business. And that's a fact. Reputation is everything in business. The moment you lose your corporate reputation, then everything is gone. And just like we know, when it comes to business, it's actually the brand that attracts us. It's the brand that sustains the patronage. So, many of us have heard of stories of, oh, this organization, this is what they did, that's what they did. Some organizations actually had to have their books have been eroded because they lost their reputation in the marketplace. And it's so easy to lose your reputation. Now, some organizations cannot do that yet because of their status. If we look at it in Europe, now where Facebook, now Meta, have been made to pay, hundreds of millions of euros over time. Now, that has happened because they are still standing tall in the market because it's actually a huge player in that space. I can tell you categorically, if you have companies or players who have the status of Meta, up to about 20 around the world, Meta will affect the heat, worse than is currently feeling it. I can tell you that. And another thing I will tell you is this: from day to day, those organizations have their officers conduct stakeholders consultation on a regular basis. Just before, as a matter of fact, today, I had a consultation with Meta team, their Sub-Saharan Africa policy management team. Though that wasn't on data protection and privacy, it was on another thing. It was basically on expression. Now, but then there are other times where their office on privacy, actually engages individual experts, particularly external stakeholders. Now, what am I saying this? Because they know what their reputation means. Reputation is everything you enjoy in the marketplace. It's it's the value you have. So for me, having every I dotted and every T crossed when it comes to having a DPO in place and having that DPO headed to perform his works or his duty or his roles goes to the root of how your organization is viewed in the marketplace. So for me, I think it's everything about your organization's corporate reputation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon, and also, Solomon and Abisola. We've seen the case you posted on the chat box. The second question from Goslov is: what are the potential legal and financial consequences for organizations that fail to appoint a data protection officer or comply with the data protection regulations?
I think that question was even taken last week. Now, let me say this. So the difference between maybe why Goslov actually, I think what Goslov did is actually to play a devil's advocate. I'm sure Goslov know that question has been taken. Now, but the only difference is that the other time we took it last week, it was just about liability. Now, but when you look at it, now, when the DPO fails in his duty, the DPO is not externally seen as the person who has failed. It is the data controller that is seen externally as the person that has failed. Now, when most likely somebody wants to drag your organization to court as data controller, whether it's private or public, we are not going to drag the DPO to court most of the time. Yes, there may be instances where a plaintiff or an applicant can sue MTN and join the DPO. But most of the times, the court can adequately adjudicate a matter without the DPO being made a party. Because when you look at it, the organization as data controller is vicariously liable for every liabilities of the DPO. You understand the concept? So when you look at it, we have answered that question. That one, the last week okay, Gustavo asked a question. Please go ahead.
Okay, please, sorry, I'm trying to get a quiet place. So majorly, I'm looking at where a company or a data controller has not appointed a DPO. What then can the law do? Is there any financial implication to that, like a fine, or is there any legal position the law can take to actually discipline them for a failure to appoint a data protection officer?
Okay, thank you. So it depends on how it is perceived. Now, it depends on how it is perceived. Now, it is the responsibility of the supervisory authority, NDPB as of today, which as soon as the DPA is in place, I mean, that's the Data Protection Act, there will be the commission. It is his duty to ensure that a data controller, as required by the law, as a data protection officer. Now, in case one required by the law does not have, or one required by the regulation does not have, then what you can do as a data subject is actually to do a petition to the supervisory authority. Now, informing them, complaining that this data controller, which by law or regulation is required to have a DPO, does not have one. And so the supervisory authority will do the needful in that case. That's number one. Number two, you are within your right if you are a data subject whose data is being processed by that controller to file an action and challenge that in court, because it's actually a requirement of extant regulation. Number three, an NGO is required or can within its right under the law I approach the court and challenge that. Let me say this, and let me be clear. Now, because so far so good, DRLI, we have been going to court under the Fundamental Rules of Enforcement Procedure 2019 to challenge violation of right to data, particularly under NDPR. If you look at NDPR very well, NDPR is actually made in pursuance of provisions of fundamental rights in Chapter 4 of the Constitution. So we have been doing that. So we have been challenging it as a contravention of right to privacy. So what we do is this: we put forward Section 37 of the Constitution. We now put on it the provisions of NDPR or the relevant provisions of NDPR. Until date, our courts have been agreeing with us up to the Court of Appeal. But then the challenge is that the provision of the Data Protection Bill 2023, what does it say when it comes to that? It doesn't make provision to that, and that may be a challenge. Now, while working for European Investment Bank, and leading a team of consultants, one of the recommendations we made is that the Data Protection Bill should be made to allow NGO, and not just NGOs, associations and companies to approach the court on behalf of a data subject whose right has been violated. And I'll tell you the reason for that, the justification of that. We live in a country where when people's rights are violated, you see that unwillingness to approach the court. it's not actually unwillingness. Now, a man has run out of his tenancy. His landlord has written to him repeatedly. He's yet to pay his child's school fee. He cannot meet up family obligations. So you think it is violation of his personal right to data that is that is his priority? Okay, you are wrong. Such a man cannot even think of it. He cannot. But you see, if the law allows NGOs, associations, and companies to approach the court on his behalf, then they may do so. He may be able to effectively adjudicate, or litigate the violation of his right to personal data, just like DRLI does for many people. DRLI does that on behalf of citizens at no charge to that victim. So what I'm saying here, what I've said here is this. One, you have the right within the extant regulation to approach the supervisory authority to complain that, look, this data controller who is processing or who has processed my personal data does not have a DPO. Number two, you can approach the court. Number three, you can get an NGO to approach the court under the NDPR. So those are possible ways to challenge it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon, for extensively explaining that question. I don't know if Abisola has anything to add to contribute to the question before we come to, I think there's also another question on the chat box.
Oh, I think Solomon has dealt judiciously and very well with the answer. So I'm not going to say anything. I think it's in order. I agree with everything that he has said.
I saw what you did there. You're trying to play my cards, but you made extensive, brilliant, so broad, comprehensive presentation. But it's fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Godlove, please, your hand is raised. Let's hear from Godlove.
Please, I'm sorry. I hope I'm still audible.
Yes.
So, in our country now, where majorly we don't really have cases like this in courts for the courts to draw reference from, what happens when a data subject actually advances or goes to court with issues like this? For example, a data controller who has now appointed a DPO, and then there are no certain cases to rely on, and our courts right now, I would say most of our judges are not really so knowledgeable on this part of law. Wouldn't that be a more dragged time for data subjects to actually want to go to court? But they feel like at this point, imagine meeting a lawyer who is letting you know that it's going to be a dicey one going to court because it's going to be a really long process.
Okay. So Godlove.
Excuse me, please, I didn't get the question. I was logged off.
So I think his question is that, given the fact that we do not have sufficient decided case law on this subject, so how does a litigation practitioner navigate his way? Because given that the principle of judicial precedent makes law easier, makes judicial proceedings easier and adjudication easier. So what does it do? So responding to it as a practitioner, as a litigator, I agree with you that scarcity of judicial authorities impede effective adjudication on data protection subject. And that is, so what do? You and I need to be challenging such infractions on daily basis. One of the reasons why injustice, violation of rights, and disregard for rule of law thrives in a society is because you and I often leave it to the divine court. Like Yoruba people say, court alone. Now, but then let me also come back to you. Do you know that it is not correct that we don't have this decided authority on this subject? I told you, if you want me to give it to you now, I will cite for you Incorporated Trustees of Digital Rights Lawyers Initiative versus Minister of Trade and Investment. That case made a very loud pronouncement on appointment and role of data protection officers. So there is one, at least. If there is no other one, there is one. There is that case, DRLI and Minister of Trade and Investment. So if I'm going to answer your question on the surface, then I will just shut down Goslow. That look, that's not true. But then I think answering that question should not be on the surface, should be broad. So I agree with you that we may not have sufficient authorities, but because even to the best of my knowledge, that is the only case that exists in Nigeria today. So it is the duty of the practitioner, when you're going to court, you will not just go to court and cite that decision. You must go with a copy of that judgment, because it's even a judgment of the federal court. I mean, that judgment was not appealed. So if it was appealed, it will have been reported. And I think that's another challenge. That's the main challenge. So if it was appealed, because most of the law reports we have in Nigeria, they only report decisions of superior courts, of appellate courts. Let me put it that way. So, but I'm saying there's a decision of our court, a brilliant decision by my Lord Justice Dingba of the Federal Court sitting in Oka. So it's there, but if you are litigating on that matter and you have relied on that authority, ensure that you're not just citing it, particularly in your address. You are armed with a copy. Or in fact, the day you are addressing your final address, please let the court know that, my Lord, I am willing to oblige the court a copy of the judgment of your learned brother on this same particular subject. And that helps the court. So, but for the purpose of the entire spectrum of data protection subject, you and I have our roles to play. Enough of, I commit you to the hands of God. God will judge. If God keeps judging, then the violators of our rights will not stop violating. And like I said, don't worry, let Data Protection Act comes in place. You will see, regardless of that, you see, look, most of the violations we have seen, I mean, that DRLI has challenged, most of them were by government, most. And that will not stop. Like I said, it's not just because we are in emerging democracy. No. In United States, most of violations of privacy are by government. And I think I did mention this on the at the last session, that was one of the things that prompted an Ivy League school like Columbia University to set up a Center for National Security and Privacy. It's a big deal. Listen, government wants to know everything about you, but it does not want you to know anything about it. Because the government's business thrives in privacy, in secrecy. The government is the big brother. I want to know, you see, for many of us to understand this clearly, the big brother show, whether BB Niger or Big Brother Africa, the big brother that says, God's law reports to the diary room. The big brother sees everything God's law does. But God's law does not even know, God's law does not even know the big brother's face. Whether it's dark, light, tall, he doesn't know it. That is how the government operates. He knows and wants to know everything about you, but doesn't want anything about it or its activities to be known.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon, for that answer. I believe it's very, very clear to every one of us on the call. I also hope it answers your question correctly. Goslow, if you're still on the call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It does. It does. Thank you.
Okay. Abisola, I don't know you were contributing.
Okay, I really, it's like I said, Solomon is an epitome and a body of so much knowledge. It's really nice. And it's nice because I'm not in practice, he's in practice. I mean, corporate practice, he's in practice. So it's nice for that. This is coming from different perspective. So I hear what God's has said regarding the fact that, look, there are no even precedents, enough precedents to, and thankfully, Solomon talked about the case with Justice Dingba. But what I wanted to also say is that let us also consider data protection is something that is relatively new in Nigeria. I mean, of course, it stems from the right to privacy from the Constitution, but I mean, it's relatively new. I mean, our NDPR was just, in 2019, and here we are, how many years after? About 4 years after, trying to even have an act here. So obviously, this might be a kind of gray area, but I know, and I do follow the Data Rights Initiative, where somebody called Olumide Babalola, who is a friend of mine, works in. Will I say works in or even champions? So I think that's a better. I know that they do a lot of work, regarding that, and I know that as time goes on, he's the only one that I've seen that does. And for you as a lawyer, that could also be okay. These people haven't done so much. I think even lawyers should have the business sense and say, okay, if this guy is doing it and there are not many people doing it in this space, let me also get myself on it, and. I think an issue that we have in Nigeria is that a lot of people don't want to come out. Like, someone was saying, and that's how God wants it. There's no problem. And that's pretty much what is always our issue, in Nigeria. Nobody wants to come forward. There are so many things that are being done, but nobody wants to do anything. And so far as we keep having that, we're not going to see a lot of traffic regarding, case law. And we're hoping that, someday, somehow, a lot of these things will come out. But kudos to all those people that are championing it in practice and even the judges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bisola, for that contribution. Gusto, we still having more questions. You can ask.
Okay, please. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Hold on, before you ask, I was trying to see if we have the group 2 members on the call now to present. Ifeanyi Chukwu, can you present now? Okay, you can ask your question, Gusto.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think in the NPPR, I think Article 3.7, yes, for rights of data subject, you said that prior to data controller collecting any data from data subject, one of the things you're meant to get from data controller includes the contact detail of the GPR. This is one thing I do not see at all in Nigeria. So can that be?
Could you repeat that question? I didn't get that, please.
Okay, I think Article 3.7, that of the NDPR, that the rights of a data subject, provides for I think one or so prior to collecting prior to the data controller getting information from the data subject, the database is meant to get the contact details of the data protection officer. Yes, and I know, for example, I get some details out daily from officers who actually need them, and I've never gotten any contact of any data protection officer whatsoever. And if you even go on some of the websites, you would not see any number specifically showing that this is the number or the contact detail of a data protection officer. Is that not a ground for the NDPB to actually look into some of these companies who collect personal data to ensure that they are complying with that provision of the NDPR that provides for giving contact detail of the DPO to data subjects before their personal data is actually being collected? I think if the NDPB actually looks into this, we'll actually find some defaulting organizations that can be held to pay either fines or things. That could actually move as well to help in some court cases. The NDPB can actually ensure that data controllers actually enforce these regulations that have been put in place by the NDPR of 2019.
What? Goslow.
Yes, sir.
You should just have said that you are the one we are coming to listen to today. Did you get that?
Yes, Mr. Solomon.
I said you should just have told us, notified us ahead that you are the one we are coming to listen today. Did you get that?
Yes, Mr. Solomon, I got that, sir.
But it's okay, don't worry. That was on a lighter note. I mean, your question actually still speaks to the reality of our terrain. And just provide me with your email, or maybe I should channel that through the moderator. I'm going to share with you a raw copy of the judgment, of our judgment against the Minister of Trade and Investment by Justice Dingba. It speaks to that section 37. We stated all of that, we highlighted it, and the court granted all of our 12 reliefs. The court agreed with us absolutely. Now, you see, so when you read it, you see your question is answered, sufficiently in that judgment. So your view is valid. It's a grant. But then, as to whether the supervisory authority will be able to take it up, trust me, Goslow, not even when we have a commission that is fully funded, or sorry, that is sufficiently funded, will be that effective to challenge all cases of infraction. Not even that. And let alone now that one, the NDPB is not sufficiently funded. Two, sensitization on the subject, particularly the general subject of data protection, is still low. So for me, I think the best way to approach it is still litigation by the data subject who believes he has a right and goes ahead to exercise his right. So using the supervisory authority will not be effective. I can tell you that even in Europe, it will not be effective. So that's, I mean, answering your question, your view is valid. Section 327 speaks to it, and that judgment captures it sufficiently. But I'm saying the best, so for example, if what we would do is to have gone to Abuja and go to talk to NIDA, then I'm not sure NIDA will be able to do anything. Seriously. So you are expecting NIDA to find, no, let me break it down. NIDA is an agency under the Ministry of Communication, now Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. We sued the Minister of Trade and Investment, the head of the ministry. So you are asking an agency who is under a ministry to penalize the head of another ministry. God's law. We know how this thing works here now. We know how it works. So for me,
Nigeria, my country.
Sorry? What did you say?
So I said Nigeria, my country.
Yes. So for me, so if we're going to rely on that, you and I can guess what would be the end. Let me give another example. So in 2019, there was a gentleman by the name Jeffrey Ewoime. Jeffrey Ewoime applied for his international passport in the UK. So he was living in the UK. So he applied for his Nigerian international passport. And on this day, he went to the High Commission, Nigeria High Commission, to pick up his passport. On getting there, he was told that the passport collection center are closed for the day, number one. Number two, that he could only come back on the next working day to pick up his passport. For whatever reason, the gentleman got angered and he lost his gentlemanliness. He went about vandalizing all the vehicles parked within the premises of the High Commission. He was arrested, and the next thing that happened was that, responding to the situation, recall that it is the Nigeria immigration that issues passports. So the way it works is that you apply to Nigeria High Commission or Nigeria Embassy abroad, if you live abroad, and Nigeria Embassy or High Commission has a desk, that is owned or that is controlled by Nigeria Immigration. So Nigeria Immigration processes your passport. So Nigeria Immigration, responding to that situation, went out and took a picture of the gentleman's data page of his international passport and displayed it on the Twitter handle of Nigeria Immigration. All of that was to say, look, as at the time this fellow went about vandalizing property around the Nigerian immigration premises, around Nigerian High Commission premises, his passport has been issued as at that material time. The only thing was that he was impatient to wait for the next working day to pick up his passport. Well, there were many issues there. There was an issue of vandalization of public property of property there, which it was labeled, in law. And note that was not a subject of debate. But there was also a subject of violation of his right to personal data and privacy by Nigerian immigration. Now, interestingly, I addressed that, and I can also avail you that article. That article was published by Columbia. It was also published by, I think, The Nation and The Punch. So I can avail you the links to the article. So I think the article was titled "The Nigerian Immigration and the Burden of Data Protection." So in that article, which I also cited a number of instances and case laws in Europe, that look, we agree that that document remains the property of the federal government of Nigeria through the issuer, Nigeria Immigration Service. But the data on it are and remain the personal property of Mr. Jeffrey Eyiwome. Sadly, some leading voices on internet freedom around that time, thank you. Somebody already, thank you. So we have it. So the article is here. So somebody who was and still a leading voice when it comes to digital rights, came up and said, look at the reverse side of your international passport. That document says this passport remains the property of federal government of Nigeria. That is correct. It's not a subject of debate. But look, while the document remains property of Nigerian government, the information on it is my information. They are my data. Nigerian government cannot lay claim to it. And that's actually an issue for knowledge. So I could recall while working for the European Investment Bank on Nigeria's digital identity project. Some of the rights holders, people we spoke to, we asked them, after enrollment on the NIM, so who now do you think own this data, the name, the information? 67% of people we spoke to in 12 states across the Federal Republic of Nigeria told us that the government holds the information. The data belongs to the government. That's their belief. They believe the government owns it and the government can do anything with it. So so if now the question is that if somebody who is a leading voice, who is an expert on digital rights, could even, in fact, she tweeted it. And so when many people saw it, they said, oh, that's true. Oh, that is not true. It is true that the document belongs to Nigerian government, but it is not true that the data on it, your personal data, belongs to Nigerian government. They remain your personal data, and that cannot change. So when that happened, what we now did was that, in fact, we now send the article to Nigerian Immigration. We sent it to NITDA. Then at DRLI, we now wrote a petition to NITDA. About 2 weeks later, NITDA now came up that they have received a petition against Nigerian immigration and they are investigating the allegation. In fact, if you go through that particular article as published on Global Freedom of Expression by Colombia, you will see an update which actually gave us what has been the response of the supervisory authority as at then. Neither was the supervisory authority as at then. Now, to that situation, I think as published in The Nation and The Punch did not capture that development. So I can say categorically that, oh my goodness, Goslow. So what was the extent of the, I think I wanted to expand my thought. So what pretty much did I respond to?
So what did you say?
I said, what pretty much did I respond to your question?
Okay, no. I think I got through the fact of it's actually the job of basically NDPB is Nigeria, data controller is Nigeria, right now it's Nigerian factor.
Oh, okay. So yes. So we're talking about I think pretty much it was by way of extension of my thought that I went into discussing how even Nigerian government can violate your right. So, and I'm saying, look, yes. So my thought is that what the best of what we got from the supervisory authority of NIDA was that it has commenced investigation. The report of the investigation, ask me, it is nowhere. So, but if it was a court, the only challenge the court could have would be, okay, the adequacy of reliefs, of handing reliefs to the applicants, also informed by scarcity of precedent in that subject, on the subject matter. But I can tell you categorically, at least a court will still hand a decision, whether granting your release, dismissing your action, or striking your action out. Do you understand? So that's why it is the best, not going, through the supervisory authority.
I wanted to add something regarding to what Solomon had talked about. So, I mean, you're saying that, the issue of sensitization is a very big issue. Sensitization in the sense that a lot of people don't really know so much about data protection in Nigeria. It's just beginning to gain growth, and it is very, very appalling. Thankfully, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe because Instagram saw that I have interest in data protection, but there was a time, sometime last year, I was seeing that the NDPP was saying that we have a lot of data protection, practitioners. If we have the data protection practitioners, how come, nobody knows about it? How come, and that's where, Solomon was saying that, the government has something, wants to know about everybody, but, they don't want you to know about what they're doing. So I would just say that, okay, I think I can see a question here. Investigation, like, let me start suing every data controller for my personal information. Okay, yes. So the issue of the, I don't think people really know that, about that Article 3.7 of the regulation. I don't think people really know about it. Even if they know about it, I don't think maybe anything really will be done. People, there are just some things that people will just say, okay, but it's not as if anything was breached. But yes, it's the law. And I guess, another thing about regulations is that there's so much that you can do with regulations. And obviously, that's why we're having the act, coming up. Yes, probably we'll start suing them. It's time to write extensively on rights of data subjects and put it out there. I think it's right. Now, let me come down, come back home. I'm sure you've seen the Federal Consumer Protection Council. They've been clamping down on loan apps, saying that loan apps are breaching, people's privacy, and of course, you know how it goes. You register on these loan apps, you start receiving messages. Oh, do you want a loan? Do you want a loan? There was a time before the FP, Federal Consumer Protection Council, FCPC, before they were able to clamp down, people would get messages that maybe someone's obituary, that the person died or something like that, just to decide. But what really happened? It happened because somebody was not doing their job. Somebody allowed data to be breached, and I can assure you that somebody went to report to the FPC, and that was how they started taking it up. And I know that they've done a lot of work, regarding that. But if someone did not rise up and say, you know what, this is not right. If someone borrows money, they shouldn't be held to ransom just because of this. Exactly. Miracle is saying loan apps. I'm happy to see your there. So I mean, it's not far from home. When I think about data protection in Nigeria, just think about how during election you were getting people. During election, I was getting some funny messages saying that they are in maybe PDP or APC or maybe Young People's Party, and they want me to vote for them. Do I know you? How did you get my number? Things like that. I understand that INEC can, send me a message that I should go and vote, but I don't know anybody in APC or PDP, why. But I mean, there's probably a logical reason for that. But what I'm even saying is that the issue of privacy is it's going to be a very interesting ride. It's going to be a very interesting one. And you have to give it to the litigation, lawyers. You really, really have to give it to them. If they don't make that effort, and I'm sure you know that one of the sources of law is obviously, judgment. If they don't make that effort, we'll not see the growth of it today. So I agree. I'm speaking and I'm reading God's loves comments. So anyway, so that's also what I wanted to say, that we really need to know about our digital rights. Unfortunately, even in America, I mean, on TV, you just see that, look, if someone has done anything bad to you, you can get a claim of $1,000 or $1 million, and if you are growing up in that kind of environment, you are seeing that, okay, I have rights in this country. I have rights because I'm always seeing it on TV that I have rights. I can go and sue. If I fall down, I can sue my employer, and my employer will pay me $10,000. But here, we don't really have much. Anytime, I can assure you that if I was not a lawyer, I would probably not know anything about, law. I mean, the sensitization is very, very low. And that's why we have people like Godslove. I see are very passionate about this. You could start up something, you could be doing, weekly things, anything to just, spread the gospel of the data protection in Nigeria or data breaches in Nigeria. But, I know that with this data protection act that is coming, is going to be passed very soon. I know that a lot of things going to change, a lot of things, and people will become more aware, and there'll be a lot of penalties. So I would advise you also, and I hope that you've been doing that. I don't know what to really, really get a view on, the enforcement provisions of the Data Protection Act, and even generally on what the data protection, provides. And like I said, there's so much you can do with a regulation, but once it's an act, it must be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. Also, Gustav, you are still having more questions.
Please, sir, no, sir, just the last one, sir.
Okay.
See, this topic is not what I've been waiting for. Please, the last one. I noticed that in the NDPR, as opposed to the GDPR and the coming act in Nigeria here, it just NDPR provides for to designate a data protection officer to ensure the adherence with the relevant authorities, relevant laws. What then are the qualifications of an NDPR right now? Because at least under the GDPR, it's clearly stated that the person must have knowledge about data protection, must be an expert, and all that. In the bill as well, in the data protection bill right now for Nigeria, it also shows that I think it's almost like a copied version of the GDPR that was pasted, just that they changed the article there, the section 3 in the bill here. What then can we say is the qualification now? Because someone could actually bring someone and say, this is a data protection officer in a for that controller, who probably is not even qualified to be in that place. But the law says you should distinct somebody there to ensure adherence. So even if the person is not really doing any job, as long as the person is saying, please, let's adhere, let's adhere, let's adhere. What then can we say is the basic qualification of a data protection officer, aside just knowing data protection laws?
Solomon, do you want to take this? Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to take it, Solomon?
You want to take it, or should I?
No, you can take it. I wasn't sure.
Okay. So, well, just like Abisola said, the first thing we need to understand is that data protection is just evolving. The question I need to ask is that the CIPP, all of these qualifications, the tutors there, who qualified them? No, you see, sometimes we need to ask ourselves some questions. You see, look, qualifications are proofs of capacity, right? So it is actually after some people have practiced a trade to a point, and somebody said, okay, you know what? Let's actually break down their training to 2. Let them spend 5 years in the university. Let's create another school where they will be trained to become lawyers. Then they will not be called to the bar. Then from time to time, those programs began getting more regimented and all that. Now, the first lawyers, which law school did they attend? I mean, even some of the first early lawyers in Nigeria, they only studied law remotely, and when they wanted to be called to bar, they went to article in the UK. They didn't attend a law school. So in the recent, so I'm saying this for us to know that as at this stage, the most important thing an authority or a data controller we have to look out for is capacity. I can tell you that some of the front line data protection experts I know in Nigeria do not have all of these qualifications. In fact, most. I don't have. Only me doesn't have. I mean, the very best we have done is, okay, we have, and the truth is that with all sense of modesty, we are not only litigated on it, we have not only have written articles on it, we have done just for multilateral institutions, European Investment Bank, United Nations. And listen, somebody will only give you a job to do in that thing when they know you have the capacity to deliver. So for now, considering or concluding on capacity will be a number of factors. Like she said, CIPP, yes, it's evidential of your capacity. But like I keep telling people when I have this opportunity to advise, inspire like this, that look, enough of going for certification. Certification is only a proof. It's not conclusive of your capacity. Anybody can go for a online course. Anybody can sit down and somebody can speak to the person. Anybody can also write an article. Writing an article, writing opinion, writing op-ed is actually taking it further. But that also is still not conclusive. For example, going ahead to litigate successfully is a further proof. Conducting a job for a multinational institution in that space is a further proof. And not just writing, having a qualification, having a certification. I mean, we're just a country where certification is glorified. And that's why you have people that will parade, you will see somebody's CV. By the time you employ them, ask them to deliver. You have created the problem. because that fellow knew nothing about that qualification, about that certification. If I could remember when many of us, I mean, and maybe almost that applies to almost all of us here who have served, I mean, with the under the NYSC scheme. When we're in camp, all of those institutions, HICAM, ICA, IPSA, OP, all of them, OPC, they came to camp. They were telling us that they have subsidized the cost of registration with their institution. In one breath, it was for them to make more money, cheap money. Some of them knew that the capacity, what they were going to teach us, many of us would not need them. And some of us also felt like, wow, you needed your CV to be huge. So many of us paid the money we did not need, we did not have, for a training we did not need. So I'm not here saying you do not need a training on data protection and privacy. If you do not need that, then I'm only wasting my time. But I'm saying, please, go for certification. Beyond certification, fine-tune your knowledge that you have acquired by writing. Beyond writing, if you can find opportunity to give a more realistic expression, someone like Bisola, by positioning, as that opportunity. I go to courts, I consult for institutions, but listen, even if we are not doing that, even if you are a student here, the last session, I told you how you can do that. You have friends in school who run blogs, who are fashion bloggers, who are food bloggers. Now, approach them. Come, Shegun, Kelvin, Rachel, I've checked your blog now. Your blog does not have the privacy policy. And I'm on a more serious note, this is a contravention of an external regulation. You can be penalized for this. Say, okay, what do I do? You need a privacy policy now. So how do I do that? Okay, you know what? I'm going to craft one for you, but you're going to pay me. Or God, leave that thing, I don't get money. Okay, don't worry. You're going to, just buy me lunch. Look, when you craft that policy, that privacy policy, the next thing you would do, go to your CV, include crafted comprehensive NDPR compliant privacy policy. In fact, if you like, NDPR and GDPR compliant privacy policy for a startup. I mentioned here, what you have done is a pointer to what you can do. When I see CVs that sound like ability to do, someone is not serious yet. But you see, when you see a CV that sounds like executed, crafted, conducted, it is pointing us to what you have done. And what you have done is a proof of what you can do. It means what you have done may not be of the same size to what we want to give you. But it shows that if you have done this, you only need to stretch yourself to do what we want to give you. So I have just told you, go for certification. Beyond certification, impart knowledge by writing. Beyond writing, offer service, even if it's pro bono. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. Would have loved to keep getting life hacks and secret lessons from you on data protection. Okay, Miss Abisola.
I wanted to say that I totally agree with Solomon. I don't have a CIPPE. Even I'm in the process of writing one, but the reason why I delayed a bit was because I didn't want to just have a certification that I will just add and I'll say on LinkedIn, I have a certification. I wanted to actually know what data protection was about, and that was why I decided to wait and now do the certification. Now, if I'm doing the exam, I have more knowledge, more practical knowledge I already know it. But when you do it without experience, it doesn't really help. It's like they're just reading to pass and you cannot do it practically. So if I ask you, what is the data protection impact assessment? They would say that, you may not know what it is. But if you work somewhere and you know that maybe you have an app that is coming out, and you know that before that app is coming out, you have to have a data protection impact assessment. If you see something like that in your exam, it's very easy to identify. So I agree with him totally. Even, I'm not opposed to you getting it, but make sure that you even know what obtains in practice. And the problem is that, as someone was saying, okay, so this thing is in Europe. What is obtainable in Nigeria? What obtains in Nigeria? There's always that precedent of you checking, or what the GDPR says, what is happening, but what exactly obtains here? How can you apply? And there, apart from CIPPE, there are other ones I've seen. It's not Solomon. There are other ones I've seen. I'm always seeing people, they'll say they've done this course in data protection, and it's a bit confusing. But the only one I know, and I plan to write, is the CIPPE. But it's a good path, for you. But I totally agree with him. Don't be someone that is just packing all the degrees and they ask you come and do something and you don't know what to do. The problem with data protection, you can read from beginning to end. Someone asks you a question about something. There's no yes or no answer. There's no straight answer to data protection. There's always every situation is different. Yeah, you can apply the principle, but 9 out of 10 times, and I'm sure Solomon will bear me witness that it's not a straight road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Solomon has something to say.
Yes, building on building on what Abisola said. In fact, let me put her on the spot. You see, look, you have said that the person may not know, even when they have taken the qualification. Abisola, let's agree that the person knows. What that person will discuss is not what you will discuss. The person will be telling. The person will be telling them what those who taught him or her who did not practice it.
Yes.
You will be discussing what you are doing. It's a different ball game. You see, like I said, and like she said, we are not discouraging taking qualification. But you see, what we are talking about is capacity, actual capacity. Actual capacity. That's what we're saying. Yes, there may be a need that, okay, so myself and Absalom may apply for a job, let's say a consultancy job, and we have the same capacity. We have same qualifications. I mean, degree, all of that, but Absalom as CIPP, I do not have. Absalom being considered for the job will not be because she's more qualified than me or she's better than me, but because they just need a screening factor. Exactly. So sometimes having it may just be for the purpose of the screening factor.
Yeah.
And that's the point. I mean, let me be clear here. Let me be clear. Now, as a date, I do not even have a master's. I don't know have a master's. I mean, at the time when myself and before Olumide had his master's, he has started his PhD now. We sat down Sunday and he said, Solomon, thank God we have not gone for master's, when we left school. I said, you're right. If you have gone for masters, some of us will have gone for masters in taxation, in petroleum and energy law.
I agree totally. I agree with you totally.
Who took LLM in aviation? They leave.
Sir, I agree with you. Is the truth?
I agree, and this is a true story of myself. I practice tech law. I did my master's over 10 years ago. And guess what? I did my master's in international trade and commercial law. If I had hindsight or insight on what the future would be, I would have actually gone for ICT law. You understand? Or cybersecurity law. Absolutely. And sometimes I'm like, okay, do I need to go back to school? Just so that I can, get this, I would have probably done that. So I think what Solomon and I are saying is, look, there's no straight road to this thing. The important thing is to know your onions. How did I know Solomon? I knew Solomon just by privacy law conference. And I was just amazed. He just said now that he doesn't have a master's. I thought he was a professor, honestly. You know, so
No,
so all these things.
Let me amuse you. Now,
Okay.
The prof.
When the job for European Investment Bank came, and so the person sent my CV to EIB. By the way, European Investment Bank is a bank that serves the European Union. So it's not, I'm sure you will know it's not in the context of a commercial bank. Is that financial institution that serves them. Now, the person replied, so the EIB replied the contact, said, does he know you are talking to us on his behalf? Because this is the perfect profile of the person we need. This is the person we need. In fact, the person they got in touch with didn't know the exact job certification. He said, please just send your CV. They were talking around labor law, employment law. Okay, so I sent my CV. Now, the first week of our correspondence, of my correspondence with European Investment Bank, the email will always start with, dear Dr. Solomon Kidara. I have to let them know, look, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a PhD. So now, look, and there were people who had even had PhDs, you know, in maybe communication law, technology, and all of that. So the only difference will not be if tomorrow, myself and Olumide, for example, even though we're very good friends, we are partners, you know, we co-founded DRLI and we are brothers, actually. We have to bid for a job. And Olumide completes his PhD. And I do not take my master's, I do not take on my PhD. Now, they most likely, in fact, if I'll be the one to decide, I will give the job to Olumide. Why? We have the same capacity. We have delivered jobs, I mean, consult job for multilateral institution, international financial institution, but he has an academic capacity, a proof of an academic capacity that I do not have such proof. So that should be not a screening factor between us. So, and that's why if you are thinking of growing in this space and any other space, now, chase capacity, then chase proof of capacity as available to you. So that's important. But I'm saying, please do not go for certification at the expense of capacity. In fact, place capacity over and above certification. Now, I want to say something. You see, a master's program is not a program you are meant to sit down after you have taken 5 years, spent 5 years in school, 1 year in law school, 1 year at the youth service. You now sit down, somebody will be dumping something to your head. A master's program should be a program that evidence or validates your mastery of that field. Let me repeat myself. A master program should be a program that evidences or validates your mastery of that field. That's what a master's program should be. Not a program where you get into class, the tutor is talking and you are looking. And because for those who have taken masters, I mean, Salah can tell us, an average master's program doesn't run like first degree, where they teach you everything. No. But I'm saying, unlike what we have seen in our society, where people have masters, they themselves cannot, they cannot remember whatever capacity they acquired. Maybe because they were not actually in tune with the program. And some persons actually obtain master's program thinking it will enhance their meal tickets or their capacity to earn, which in some cases, in fact, most cases here is not the case. So please go for capacity, go for certification, but don't leave actual capacity behind while you are chasing certification and you go all about on LinkedIn displaying CIPP. Please, enough of that. Thank you. I'm not sure. I'm sure we have done enough. I've learned myself. I've learned, in fact, when I
Same
said
here, I've learned so much.
while here, I have actually noted an article I'm writing, and you know, maybe by the time when the article is out, without telling anybody here, if you see the article, the title, you understand that I picked it from this class. So I'm not sure is it still necessary for us to go over the slides again, to review the slides? I do not think I have the time anymore. But I think we have done.
That slides should go. Today has been amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our both mentors for an excellent job well done. And I think, Gustav, you still have a request on the chat box for our mentors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, yes, sir. I know. Okay, I've done about 2 privacy policies before for clients, but then I like the fact that they actually refer to NDPR and probably GDPR compliant privacy policies. They could actually afford us with templates of this and actually probably discuss the features vis-a-vis these regulations I think to really broaden our concept, so that when we see the principles of data protection actually being properly carried out and put in place in these privacy policies, it really, really help to understand the concept a whole lot. It's just like going through a deed and you're seeing the actual deed, and then you're understanding why each part of the deed is actually there and how it actually correlates with laws of contract, laws of property, and the rest of them.
Okay, I don't know if we still have time for that for today's session.
No, sir, not today, not today. I think we could discuss with them. It could be done like next week. Please,
okay,
sir.
Okay, I mean, I'll be here next week, but I mean, I like Solomon, I said Solomon, sorry, God's loves passion for it. However, I would say that this thing that you're asking for, people are paying money for it though. It's not free. You know, people actually collect money to, you know, pay for this. But nonetheless, I mean, there are some templates that are available, and you know, I'm sure that JIIPC will be able to help. Yes.
All right. Okay, Gustav, we'll get back to you on your request. And thank you very much, Mr. Solomon Ekedara, Ms. Abisola Oshin, for the mentorship session today. Our mentees that are available on the call. Thank you very much, everyone. I think with this, we've come to the end of today's program. I will give the floor to my co-moderator to give us a closing remark. Aminat Adam, if she's still on the call. Amina, are you on the call? Okay, I know what we've learned from today's session cannot be overemphasized. We've all learned something in any area we face in life, especially with Mr. Solomon's story. Personally for me, when he was just talking, I was remembering what I always read on his profile whenever I'm reading his profile, which is the part where he says he has an unusual knack for excellence and matchless client satisfaction. So one thing I will give all of us today from everything he has said, one thing I will summarize with everything I said is that we should all have that passion, that unusual knack for excellence in whatever we are doing. If for those of us taking masters, for those of us on this course, that also brings us to how for our mentees PowerPoint presentation here today, and also the turn up for those that are presenting. These small things should all be taken seriously. Thank you very much once more, Mr. You said I should not call you Mr. But I'm learning how to not call you Mr. Solomon and Ms. Abisola for joining us today. We've come to the end of the program for today. See everybody next week, same time, 4 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. LinkedIn will hear what happened today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm sorry. Before we go, let's take a quick picture time. I think we forgot to take that. I will encourage everyone to put on their videos. We just take a quick screenshot for 30 seconds. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay.
Have you
I've
taken a
taken the
picture? Mr.
yeah. I've
Solomon is
taken the
not here. Don't you want to put Mr. Solomon on your post? You don't want to advertise um your
we want Mr.
your
Solomon, please,
mentorship
if you are
program.
still with us. I don't think Mr. Solomon is still with us.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's muted and his video is off too.
Okay. I mean that's fine. I guess you can take it now. Who else is on the picture? Okay. It's nice to see everyone's face.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Solomon is back. Okay,
Okay,
thank you. I'm
okay.
smiling.
Fantastic. Let's take I mean he's giving us so much and you don't want to credit him and you don't want to put his face. No, I will not I will not accept that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon, Mr. Bisola.
Thank you.
I've taken the screenshots. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Solomon. And I apologize. I didn't know that you and Olumide were partners. I've never met you. I didn't know. In fact, I even have this book. I have this book.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that I have this book, you know.
In fact,
so I didn't even know.
I bought the book. I actually gave out about 20 copies of the book, 20 or 30 for some lawyers across the country. I bought it for them.
Nice.
I waybilled it to them. So
that's so nice of you. That's really nice of you.
I didn't get the book, sir.
Privacy and Data Protection Law in Nigeria by Olumide Babalola. If you want a copy, you can meet me, you can meet Mr. Solomon. We both know the author of the book. So you can yes, you can. Yes. But I think
so
it's a very good foundation for data protection in Nigeria. And I think you've done a good job. And I know that, you know, with the Data Protection Act, everything will be, you know, there'll be much, you know, more explanatory, you know, to help. But it's a very good foundation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very
much. I followed
much.
You, Mr. Solomon. I followed you.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
I'm one of your fans from today, so I followed you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. It's been
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I think some of us will read something about it soon. Let me just leave it at that.
Will you post it on LinkedIn? Because I'm following you now on LinkedIn, so I will know that, you know, I was in the session.
His LinkedIn is like a conference.
And that's why I followed him. He needs to accept my followership. So
yes,
that's good.
No, he replies promptly on LinkedIn. I was
so
shocked.
I'm sure he has responded to me then. So I don't have a problem. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the hype.
It's not a hype, sir.
Sir, but it's true, sir. When I sent a message
on the hype,
is it true that just love?
Yes. When I sent a message to you, I was so shocked how promptly you responded. I almost threw my phone away. I was so shocked. I didn't see it coming at all.
Just love.
Yes, sir.
That song I'm going to play for you. You remember that song? The song one of our brothers in the, I think, South South did. Shey you dey why me ni?
Funny enough, we come from he and I come from almost the same place in River State.
Okay, don't worry. So you know, someone said the lyrics of that song, the last word is barista. So he pronounced it as barista.
Actually, it's Barry. So the one low barista. It's like saying, oh, so the one God Abi.
In fact, God's love. I'm promising you, for being so active in this, you are getting a book for this data protection law. Yeah, you're getting. I'm going to contact Olumide now. He's even good. I know him my own book. So let me just get the book. So you're going to get it from me. So let me know where you're going to. Let me know where you're going to. How to get it across to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mom. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
You're welcome. And
No.
please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn.
Oh, I'm
sure
sure
everybody that today, even without comment on the slides, is the most productive and fruitful day to me, even to me. So,
Yes,
so in that case, I don't think we have to be using the same parameter. Just like it still speaks to the same thing we discussed about certification. Let's go for the real deal. If the real deal is the knowledge, let it be the knowledge, however it comes. It doesn't have to be in the regimented way we think it should come. So everyone, thank you so much. It's been a beautiful evening. So we'll see the next time. I will see the next time. Okay, so we'll see the next time. So have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Ma. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, please get in touch so I can get it across.
I'll do that right away. Thank you.